Hey everybody, welcome to day 2 of me waiting for my son's COVID test results, and you guys hopefully having a sub. I hear there wasn't one yesterday, so hopefully one picked up today. We are still continuing to prepare for the exam that is scheduled for tomorrow. That test is going to happen. Hopefully I get negative results for my son tomorrow or today as you guys are seeing this. And then I can come back on Wednesday and we can take our test and move on with our week. The questions we're going to be doing today are a little bit harder. It's all properties of matter. So I'm going to do 4 practice questions with you first, and then I will give you guys the assignment that you're supposed to do today. So let me switch over so that you can see some practice questions. Okay guys, we're going to do a couple of practice problems before I send you off on your own. Like I was saying, these problems are a lot harder than the ones that we did yesterday. This goes back to properties of matter, so it can include density, it can include magnetism, solubility, conductivity, state, mass, volume, all of the different properties that we talked about and we learned about from the beginning of school up until now. So we're going to go ahead and get started with some practice problems. So question 17 you don't have in your packet. I'm just going to work this one out with you. A student investigated the relative densities of 4 different liquids. So we're talking about density here. She compared 2 of the liquids in a beaker. She repeated the process 3 more times with different liquids and recorded her observations. Okay, so the question is, which shows the relative density of the 4 liquids from most dense to least dense? And what we have to remember is that the ones that are more dense are going to be down lower, right? And the ones that are less dense are going to be up above, right? So we know that L is less dense than M. So if I'm going most to least, M has to be in front of the L. Okay, there's not an option there. The M has to be in front of the L. So that takes out answer A, right? The M is in front of the L here. That's okay. That takes out answer C, okay, because the L would be first. And I need the M to be first because the more dense one, which is the M, should be first. So I'm down to 2 choices just by looking at that first beaker. Okay, now let's look at the second beaker. The second beaker says that M is less dense than O. So that means O has to come in front of M, right? O is in front of M here. O is in front of M here, but N is in between them. That's still okay because the O is in front. So we're going to keep going. We're going to go up here. Okay, this says that N has to be in front of M because N is more dense, so it has to be in front. Well, it is in front. So we need this last beaker. This last beaker says that O is less dense than N. So N is the most dense of all. So it has to start with N. So the correct answer is actually B. It's a logic puzzle, kind of like the balance scales that we did in warm-up at the very beginning of the year. Okay, let's continue on with a couple more just practice togethers. This is question 18. The table lists some properties of 3 labeled objects. We have label A, B, and C. A is a solid, B is a liquid, C is a solid. We have if they're more or less dense than water, and they're all poor conductors, right? So based on their properties, which of these tables properly identifies the objects? So we have to match the properties up, right? All of them are poor conductors, okay? So we're not going to have anything metal, right, at all. So I just took out answer B because it had something metal in it. A has to be a solid, B has to be a liquid, and C has to be a solid. Let's check that. So we have solid, liquid, solid, that's fine. Solid, liquid, solid, that's fine. Solid, liquid, solid, that's fine. So we've already taken care of these 2 clues. Now we're going to have to look at this one. According to the clues at the chart about relative density, we have A has to be more dense. And if it's more dense, it's going to sink in water. And B and C have to be less dense. So B and C are going to float in the water. So let's check A. The glass marble, we did marbles in some of our labs, right? We know that the marble would sink. But we also know that syrup would sink down in water because we did that in lab. So that's going to take this answer out. 18 is not A. Okay, let's look at answer C then, because we've already eliminated B. A plastic cube, vinegar, and salt. Okay, well, let's stop right there, right? Is salt going to be less dense? When we put salt in water, we know what's going to happen. It's going to dissolve. It might sink to the bottom first, but I can't think of a situation where the salt would actually be floating. So I would take it out based on that one alone. Hopefully this last one makes sense. Let's go through and check. A glass marble, we already said that would sink. Oil, we know oil floats in water, and a wooden block would also float. The correct answer to number 18 is answer choice D. Okay, going on to 19. I had to try to fix our light a little bit there. Which of the following tables does not correctly group objects by physical property? So we're looking for something that is incorrect, right? So soluble in water and insoluble, we know that soluble means it can dissolve and insoluble means it can't dissolve. So sugar, salt, honey, powdered tempera paint, those are all soluble. Iron filings, sand, steel cans, and canola oil, any type of oil, is insoluble. So this one is actually correct, but I'm looking for the one that is not correct. So let's try B. B is talking about good electrical conductors and poor electrical conductors. So good electrical conductors, if we're talking about electricity, then we're going to be looking for copper. Ooh, glass. Glass is not an electrical conductor, so I'm going to put that right there as something that would be wrong. Iron is. Salt water actually is an electrical conductor. Rubber, plastic, porcelain, cardboard, those are all things that are bad conductors or insulators. So this part is right, but glass over here, glass is not actually an electrical conductor. So we're going to check the other two just to be sure, but I'm pretty sure B is going to be our answer. Answer C, a good thermal insulator. So now we're talking about heat. Air, wood, cotton, newspaper, those are good thermal insulators. Foil, a steel spoon, an iron pan, a glass bowl. Okay, those would be poor thermal insulators. Those are thermal conductors. That's correct. Glass is actually a thermal conductor, even though it's an electrical insulator. And then D, less dense. So we know that less dense is going to float and more dense is going to sink. Glass, rock, diamond, corn syrup, those things would sink. Plastic ball, vegetable oil would stick, and rubbing alcohol, those things would float. So the one that has the thing that's incorrect is answer B, because glass is actually an electrical insulator, not an electrical conductor. Okay, last one for us to work together, and then you're going to go off to do some of them on your own. If you don't finish, this is all on my YouTube channel, so you can look it up later. I'll give that information once I come back and start going through the questions with you. Okay, question 20. Which of the following tables correctly groups objects by physical property? So this time we're looking for the one that is correct as opposed to the one that's incorrect. So solid liquid is our first two categories. A desk is a solid, salt is a solid, but canola oil, that is not a solid. So this is going to be incorrect. I'll go to B. A good thermal insulator, so it blocks heat. Cotton mittens, newspaper, and air, that's true. A poor thermal insulator, which would be a thermal conductor. Foil, spoon, and glass, that's correct. Okay, so this one is looking good. We're going to try C. Okay, we have more dense, which means it's going to sink, and less dense, which means it's going to float. Right there, corn syrup and rocks and metal bolts those are backwards. The titles are backwards, right? So this is out. Okay, these things, corn syrup, rock, and metal bolt, are not going to float in water. And then we can check this one, magnetic and non-magnetic. Iron is magnetic, but aluminum is not, and copper is not. Steel should be on this side. These two were correct. So the only one that's right, that doesn't have something incorrect in it, would again be answer B for question 20. Okay, so if you have not already, then you are going to work out the other questions, the other 16 questions that you have in the packet. Depending on if there's a substitute or not a substitute, my original plan was for you guys to work in partners. and the partners were gonna work together, and then at the end I was gonna go through all of them with you. However, I know yesterday there was no sub and you were split all over the place. So if you're split, you may have to work independently and then go back and check. If there is a sub, then you're going to be working with partners. The person who is right next to you, like the corner partners right there at the table, that's who you're going to be able to work with. And then in about probably about 25 minutes, you guys will come back and we will go through the questions. Okay, so I'm going to put my information up for YouTube so that you can figure out how to find me. And the reason I'm going to do that is that you may not get to finish watching this video in class today going through all of the answers. And so I want you to be able to locate the answers to watch this if you want to finish at home, or if you want to study some more tonight, or you don't understand how I work something out. I want you to be able to find that. So on YouTube, if you just go to youtube.com, up in the search bar at the top, if you type in Science Pontius, all one word, no spaces, doesn't have to be capitalized. And if you put in Science Pontius, it will come up with a little gator symbol, and then you can get to my channel. And so that will help you to practice or to watch videos over different concepts. And that's where I've been posting my sub plans for you guys to look at. So let's go ahead and get started on going through the 20 questions that hopefully you and a partner got to practice together. If not, then the 20 questions that hopefully you tried on your own. Okay guys, so at this point you should have tried to answer the 16 questions on your own that you had hopefully with a partner. If not, at least you should have tried by yourself. And I'm now going to go through them, explain them, and work them out, right? So for question 1, the table lists some properties of 4 objects. We have object 1, 2, 3, and 4. We know state, we know magnetism, we know electrical conductivity, and we know solubility. Okay, even though they didn't label them, I can tell that's what our categories are. So based on the properties, they're asking me to find an object that is most likely iron. Now, one of the key things that we know about iron is that it is going to be magnetic. So that's the first thing that I'm going to look for, okay? I'm going to come up here and I'm going to notice that in the chart, object 1 is magnetic and object 3 is magnetic. So I'm going to take out object 2 and object 4, because if it's made of iron, it definitely has to be magnetic. Then I'm going to be able to go through and check the other properties, so see if it's going to be 1 or 3. So both of them are solid, which makes sense because iron is going to be solid at room temperature. They're both magnetic, so that's a good property. One is a good conductor, one is a poor conductor, and they're both insoluble. So I really just have to decide about the conductivity of iron. Iron is a metal, and all metals are conductors, so I'm going to go over here to object 1, and the correct answer to question 1 was letter A. Question 2, I'm so sorry, the dog's nails are ticking on the floor. I don't know why he's up this late. I guess he's seeing what I'm doing. Question 2, which of these tables correctly identifies the solubility of each substance in water? So we know solubility is its ability to dissolve. And so I know soluble means it does dissolve, and insoluble means it does not dissolve. So I just have to find the one that is correct, telling if it dissolves or doesn't dissolve in water. So oil, we know that oil and water do not mix, that oil will float, it's less dense, and it will always be above the water. So any of them that say oil is soluble, I'm going to go ahead and cross that out, which gets rid of 2 whole answer choices for us. Okay, then I'm going to be able to keep going. So both of these say oil is insoluble, and they both say salt and sugar are soluble. So the difference between answer C and answer D is the honey. And we did this in class, right? On Thursday before you guys went on your holiday break, the last time I got to see you. I actually did put honey in water and I stirred it up and it was soluble. It did dissolve. So that means that the correct answer here is going to be answer choice D. Number 2 was D. Number 3, the students observe the physical properties of 6 common objects. We have a marble, a rubber band, some styrofoam, a cardboard tube, a wooden craft stick, and a plastic spoon. The question is, which of these properties can be used to classify these 6 objects into more than one group? We know classify means sort, right? So I have these 6 things, and I have to be able to sort them into 2 groups based on a property. The first choice is magnetism. So my 2 groups would be magnetic and non-magnetic, right? So I look up here, and I don't see any one item that is magnetic, which means I can only make 1 group for magnetism, and that's non-magnetic for these 6 objects. So magnetism is not going to be the property that I would use for this group they gave us. The next choice is physical state. States of matter are solid, liquid, gas. But when I look at my objects up here, everything is a solid. So they all go into 1 group. So I can't use states of matter to make more than 1 group. Okay, I can try solubility in water, the ability to dissolve, and I don't actually see anything that's going to dissolve, so they would all be insoluble. So again, I can't make more than 1 group. My last choice is relative density to water. So we could have a group that's more dense than water, and we could have a group that's less dense than water, right? We know the things that were more dense would sink, and the things that are less dense would float. And just looking up here, I know that marbles are going to sink because we did that in class, and I know styrofoam is going to float because we did that in class, right? We did the mixture of marbles and styrofoam, dumped it in the water, all the styrofoam floated, all the marbles sank. So even if I'm not sure about these other 4 items, I know these 2 for sure, which makes 2 different groups. The other ones would fit into those same 2 groups, more or less dense. So the answer to number 3 is D, relative density to water. That's how I can make more than 1 group out of those objects. Okay, question 4. A cook is preparing dessert. The cook places the following ingredients in a hot pan on the stove. I got a chocolate bar and I got a frozen banana. So we have a hot pan, and I'm going to put these 2 things in the hot pan. Question is, which of the following changes to the ingredients does not occur when heated over a hot pan? So this is a place where they would trick us, right? We're thinking, okay, it's hot. We look at these, which one happens, and that's how we make our mistake. We're trying to find the one that does not occur. The temperature of the chocolate bar increases. Well, if you put it in a hot pan, then yes, it would increase. So this is a yes, but remember, we're looking for a no. The chocolate bar changes from solid to liquid. Yes, when you heat chocolate in a hot pan, that's what would happen. You can hold chocolate just in your hand and it will start to melt. So in a hot pan, it definitely would melt. The temperature of the banana increases. It's having heat applied to it. So yes, the temperature will go up. The banana melts from a liquid to a solid. Okay, well, that's not going to work out, right? So melting is not changing from liquid to solid. Liquid to solid is called freezing, which you would need not heat to do that. You would need cold, the absence of heat, right? And so it's not even, that doesn't even make sense. But when we heat up a frozen banana, it's not going to turn liquidy, even if we were going with the melt concept. So the one that does not happen, the answer to number 4 is actually D. All right, moving on to 5. Like I said, these are a little bit harder. You have to pay close attention to all of these charts and tables. It's good to practice with these questions though, because these are like what's on STAR, right? These are like what's on the exam. And this 5.5a, properties of matter, is a place where all of the kids in Texas always stumble. There's always a little bit of a struggle here. So we really want to practice these type questions. Question 5. Which of the following tables identifies the correct physical properties of the 4 listed substances? So the whole thing is a question, and I'm just trying to find the one that's correct. Okay? So we have substances, their physical state, and the result when added to water. Okay, so if it's going to sink or float or dissolve, what's going to happen? So lamp oil is a liquid, and we know that oil floats. So this is good. I'm going to go check lamp oil for all of them just to see if I can get rid of any choices that way. Lamp oil is a liquid that does not sink. We can get rid of that. Lamp oil, liquid, sinks. We can get rid of that. lamp oil, liquid float, we can keep this one. So just by looking at that top substance, I can get rid of 2 choices. Right? Let's go to the next choice. So powdered drink mix, solid, and dissolves, they match, which is good because that's the correct answer. Okay, sand is a solid that dissolves. Sand is a solid that sinks. Okay, remember, if sand dissolved, there would be no beach, and Miss Pontius would be very sad because that's my favorite place to be. So the correct answer is actually B. Sand is a solid that sinks. Sugar is a solid that dissolves. B is the table that has the correct physical properties of the substances. It's just kind of like process of elimination, guys. All right, let's move on to 6. Another table. Star likes tables. Students tested 4 different containers to learn which container would keep hot water the warmest after 15 minutes. Okay, so if it's going to keep hot water warm, it's going to keep the heat inside, then we're really looking for a thermal insulator, right? And I know we haven't got to energy yet. We start that Monday, by the way. But we're looking for a thermal insulator. So here's all my cups started at 77. After 5 minutes, they took a temperature, and after 15 minutes, they took a temperature. Based on the data, which is the best thermal insulator is what they're asking me. The best thermal insulator is going to lose the least heat, right? So I'm looking for the least temperature change, okay? So this one went 77 to 42, right? So this one went 77 to 53. 77 to 55, and 77 to 40. Since they all started at 77, right, I could work each one out and see what the difference, subtract to see how much it lost. Or I can just look at this and know that the one that's still the warmest is the one that lost the heat, right? It stayed the warmest the longest. So cup 3 is the answer, but look carefully. We've got 2 cup 3s, right? We're going to get rid of cup 4. We're going to get rid of cup 1. We like cup 3. I don't know why the marker doesn't want to work right there. But then we have to give a reason, because the temperature had the lowest decrease, because the most thermal energy was produced by the cup. The cup is not actually making the heat, so we're going to get rid of this. And the correct answer to number 6 was answer choice B. Number 7, one of our density columns with solids, right? A student poured 3 liquids into a glass. Then the student added 3 objects to the glass. We did a lab very similarly, right? The question is, which liquid is most likely to be vegetable oil? Well, we know that oil would float in water, right? And it floats in water because it's less dense, right? So if here's the water, the oil is going to be the liquid that's on top of it. So it's going to be liquid L. I can get rid of M. I can get rid of M. But there's 2 L's, so we have to give a reason, right? This says because vegetable oil is less dense, and we know that our picture for less looks like that. And this one says vegetable oil is more dense than the water. More it would be under. It's not under, so it's not more. The correct answer was A. Liquid L is the oil, and the reason it's the oil is because it is less dense, so it's floating on the water. Number 8, a teacher is making a smoothie. She puts the following ingredients into a blender. We got a frozen banana, a cucumber, a water, and some sugar. All right, which of the following changes is least likely to take place when blending these ingredients together? So I want the thing that's not going to happen. This is actually a very tricky question. I remember this question from years past, right? So if I stick a banana in a blender, most of us know what a blender is, right? You push the button, it chops things up. Then the banana is going to become smaller in size. This is true, but again, I'm looking for the one that is not going to happen. I'm looking for the no, okay? The sugar changes from solid to liquid. Solid to liquid is melting. Keep that in mind, right? The water changes color. Well, when you put the banana and the cucumber and the sugar, and it's not going to be clear anymore, correct? So there is going to be a color change. This is true. The water's taste changes. Well, just the sugar in the water would change the taste of the water, right? The water's going to become sweet. So this is also true. The one that is not true is actually B. And let me explain this for just a second. okay? When something is dissolving, the sugar would dissolve, right? That is not the same as melting. It is not changing to a liquid. When the sugar dissolves, it's actually still in solid form, but it just spreads out evenly. It's in very, very small solid pieces. If we had a strong enough microscope, you could actually still see it as little tiny solids spread out throughout the water. Teeny tiny solids, right? But it doesn't melt. Solid to liquid is melting, and we're not applying heat, so we're not actually melting the sugar. You can't melt sugar. Sugar will burn before it will melt, right? Okay, so the correct answer is actually B there. That's a very hard question. Don't feel bad if you missed it. Okay, number 9. The table lists some properties of 4 objects. I got object 1, 2, 3, 4. I can tell I've got state, I've got magnetism, conductivity, and solubility, right? I'm trying to figure out which object is most likely plastic. Okay, so they're all solids. That clue does not help me at all. If I go to the next clue about magnetism, plastic would be non-magnetic, right? So I'm going to get rid of the 2 that say magnetic, because that can't be the plastic. Plastic's not magnetic, right? So then I'm going to be trying to decide if it's a conductor or if it's soluble, right? And so we have little plastic beads that we did in the lab. We haven't done really a lot with electricity yet. You should remember that from 4th grade, but we'll just pretend like we don't and go with what we've done in class. We put the little plastic beads in the water, we stirred it up, and they sank to the bottom, right? The green beads that you guys did in the lab. So plastic is actually insoluble. So object 4 is going to be my plastic. And P.S., plastic is not a good conductor. It's an insulator, right? So that fits all of the clues. So number 9, the correct answer was D. Okay, number 10. The table lists some properties of copper and plastic. We have copper is solid, it's flexible, it's a good electrical conductor, it's a good thermal conductor. And then we have plastic, it's solid, it's also flexible, it's a poor thermal conductor and a poor electrical conductor. So they're both solids, they're both flexible, but the copper is a conductor and the plastic is going to be an insulator. So based on the table, which material should be used to insulate electrical wires? Well, I think I just gave that away, right? If it's a thermal conductor, then I don't want to put that around the wire. That is what the wire is made out of, okay? The plastic is going to be what goes around the wire, right? So I don't want the copper. I do want the plastic, not because it's a solid, but because it's an insulator, right? We want to insulate. So the correct answer then is actually D to number 10. All right. Number 11. Ooh, we had one of these in warm-up, right? This is one of those logic puzzles with the balance scales again. So we have a lab team. They're using a balance to compare the masses of 4 different blocks. Of course, only 2 blocks can go on at a time, right? So we're trying to figure out the order from least, we want the smallest, right, to the greatest mass. So I want the bigger ones. All right, now think about the balance scale, right? The smaller one is going to be up, and the one that has the most mass is going to go down. It's like a seesaw, right? The heavy one goes down. So we just need to make sure that the smaller letter, the one that's up, is in front, right? So L has to be in front of M. Okay, well, that works here, not there. That works here, not there. So again, off the first picture, we've gotten rid of 2 choices, right? So we know that L has to come in front of M. They might be right together. They might not be right together. We're not positive on that. We know that M, because it's up, has to be in front of N. So I'm going to put the N over here somewhere. The M also has to be above the O. So O is going to be either in front of or behind the N, but I'm not sure until I look at the last scale. The O is up, so the O has to be in front. So I actually want it to say LMON, which is going to be answer A. Okay, it's a logic puzzle, right? It can't be C because the O is lighter, and so it has to be in front. And we got rid of the other 2 just based off the first scale. All right, number 12. Lots and lots of tables and properties of matter, guys. Table lists some properties of 3 labeled objects. They're labeled X, Y, and Z. Okay, we know about thermal conductivity, electrical conductivity, and relative density in water. Based on the properties, we're looking for the table that properly identifies the objects, right? The one that's correct. Okay, so I'm going to look at this, and I'm going to go straight for conductivity, right? I know that if it's a good thermal conductor and a good electrical conductor, then it's going to be something that's metal. So I'm going to check the Z's and make sure that they're metal. This one's metal, this one's metal, this one's not, this one's not. So I've gotten rid of 2 choices, right? Just by checking for that it's a good conductor for both, it's a metal. I know that X cannot be metal, right? Because it's a thermal conductor and it's not a good thermal conductor and it's not a good electrical conductor. So it can't be metal. And neither one is metal, so that actually is just fine. So then I'm going to look at Y, right? Y, it has to be a good thermal conductor, but it has to be a poor electrical conductor. The only thing that's different about for conductivity for thermal and electrical would be glass. So I'm looking for Y to be glass, which it is right here. So my answer is C. Okay, let me explain that one just a little bit. So when we're talking about electricity, okay, glass will not conduct electricity. The electricity cannot get through the glass. Okay, but when we're talking about heat, it can get through the glass. So that's why we have like glass baking dishes, right? So the correct answer here is C, because we want the one that's a good thermal conductor and a poor electrical conductor to be the glass. 13, another chart, right? Another table. Again, we have substances. We have their solubility, their physical state, their density, and we have a mass. The substances were added to a large beaker of warm water. Okay, we put all of them in there. A student stirred the mixture for 3 minutes. Okay, based on the table, which substance could most likely be separated using a strainer? A strainer is another word for a sieve, right? Okay, so we're putting it in there for 3 minutes, right? If we put it in there for 3 minutes and we stir it for 3 minutes, the 2 that are soluble are going to dissolve. They're soluble, right? That's what that word means. So these 2, we're not going to be able to get out with the sieve, the strainer. So I'm going to take Y and Z, and I'm going to cross those 2 out. So now I have W and X. Neither of them dissolve in the water. Okay, so they're both still going to be visible in the water. Okay, but one is a liquid and one is a solid. Remember, a sieve is like a screen. It separates by size. If it's liquid, and it's with the water, which is also a liquid, they're just both going to go through the hole. It's not going to separate it. But the one that's a solid could get caught in the sieve, right? And the liquid that floats in the water, which is probably going to be like an oil, right? The oil would go through the sieve and the water would go through the sieve. And whatever this solid thing is, this substance X, that would get caught in the sieve. So number 13, we would like answer choice B to be the answer. Number 14, we have 6 more objects. This time we're looking for a property that cannot be used to sort into more than one group. So remember, classify just means to sort them out, but I'm looking for the one that does not sort into more than one group. All right, so here we go. Physical state, solid, 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 solid. That's not more than one group, so I'm going to put a little question mark there and keep checking, right? Electrical conductivity. Well, the cardboard and the sugar and the cotton are not going to be conductors, but the steel and the aluminum and the iron, those are all types of metal. Those are going to be conductors, so that does make 2 groups, conductors and insulators, right? Magnetism, I see something that's iron, I see something that's not iron. That means I'm going to have a magnetic and a non-magnetic group, so that one makes 2 groups. Solubility in water, soluble and insoluble would make my 2 groups, right? Insoluble, insoluble, soluble, insoluble, insoluble, insoluble. So I do have one soluble thing, so that does make 2 groups. The one that does not classify into 2 groups is physical state, because everything is a solid in number 14. Okay, 15. Team of students listed the properties of 2 mystery substances for another team to identify. Again, we have Y and Z. We know they're both insoluble. They're both solids. One is a good conductor that sinks. One is a poor conductor that floats. Based on the properties, which of the objects is most likely aluminum? We know aluminum is a metal. And we know that all metals are conductors. So I'm just going to look up here for the one that's a good conductor. And so that means Y is going to be my aluminum. But again, we have 2 Y's, right? I took out the Z's, but we have 2 Y's. This says Y because aluminum is always a solid. This says Y because aluminum is a good conductor. And we're going to go with this. And here's why aluminum is not always a solid. You can melt aluminum, right? That's how they make aluminum cans. They melt it down. They put it into that can shape. That's how they make aluminum foil, right? They melt it down, they flatten it, they pour it very, very thin, they roll it out, right? Once they get it to re-solidify. So it's not always a solid, right? The reason we knew is because of conductivity, so we just had to match that up. So 15 was C. And the last question that I asked you guys to work out on your own, again, we have lots of charts to look at. Don't be intimidated by questions like this, right? It's really not hard if we just take it a step at a time. Try to get rid of answers first, okay? So a student tested the following items to determine their electrical conductivity, attraction to a magnet, and attraction to a magnet, sorry. Aluminum can, a glass plate, a copper wire, and an iron nail. Which of the tables correctly identifies the properties of the items? So I'm just looking for the table that's right. Okay, I have the 4 items, the can, the plate, the copper wire, and the nail, right? I'm testing conductivity and I'm testing attraction to a magnet. So let's go with the magnet first, right? Magnets are easy. We're just looking for something that's iron or steel for a magnet. So aluminum should be no, glass should be no, copper should be no, the iron should be yes. So this side of this chart is right. Let's check the other magnetisms, right? Okay, this says no to the aluminum, no to the glass, yes to the copper. Copper like a penny. We know pennies are not magnetic. And it says no to the iron nail, and we know iron is magnetic. So this choice is out just based on the magnetism. Okay, let's try this one. Ooh, there's a lot of yeses. Aluminum is not magnetic. Pennies are not magnetic. Copper wire, right? This one should be, but we still have 2 things that are wrong. I don't even need to check the rest of the chart for that one. Okay, let's check here. Again, just on the magnetism, we have a problem, right? Just on the magnetism, we have an issue because aluminum is not a magnetic metal. Okay, that would mean that foil would be magnetic. That would be that soda cans would be magnetic, and that doesn't work out, right? So we're going to get rid of this one. I'm going to double check my conductivity just to be sure I didn't make a mistake somewhere else. All of my electrical conductors are going to be metal, right? So aluminum is a metal, copper is a metal, and iron is a metal. Glass is not a metal, so it's not. Correct answer is answer A for question 16. So I hope you don't forget to study tonight because you will be having tests tomorrow. It is about 11:57 p.m. Right now this evening when I'm recording this, and a sub still has not picked up for class tomorrow. So I'm really hoping that you guys got to have a substitute and so that you could work with a partner and you could be in class. If not, remember, study the vocabulary, and I'm really, really hoping I will see you guys on Wednesday. Okay, take care. Bye.